Thanks for being here, guys. If you can give this a nice thumbs up, it'll help the content circulate while it's live and let folks know, hey, we're here. Conversation is definitely happening. Yes, third I am holding it down in the Ozarks. I love it. So good. This is wonderful. Kat, yes, great. One moderator is here. Thank you. Kat, so glad you are here, sis, and that you're joining. Specifically, I was thinking about you last night because when I shared the poll for this year's Q&A with Kay, it was specifically you and a few others who had shared, look, Kay, the conversation I want to have this year is about how to navigate walking in the third dimension and the fifth dimension at the same time and beyond, because there's more than just the fifth dimension, but it's that fifth dimension where creatorship happens, where we have the ability to bend time and space and shift ourselves from and navigate to any reality we'd like to live in. And you may have heard that there's a bit of collapsing of some of the interdimensional spaces. And if you haven't heard that, that's okay. You're still navigating it. You're not behind or late or anything. You're having the experience just without realizing it. And so I wanted to do the live portion for the YouTube community as a way of just sharing with you, some encouragement, because I think a lot of folks are really in a space of needing to understand, look, you're not behind, you're not late, you're not doing it wrong. You're in a space where things are, in fact, shifting in some unforeseen ways for those of us who are light workers. Things that we thought would happen are happening very differently. And there are some things that are unfolding that, once like, oh, okay, that's part of it, you can relax about it. And because I have found lately in a lot of my conversations with clients, there have been a tremendous number of people saying, okay, this is happening or that's happening, or I'm responding in this way. Is this normal? Am I okay? Like, I feel like I'm missing the boat here. And that response to what's unfolding is something wrong? Am I doing it wrong? Response is generating a tremendous amount of static in your individual lives. And it's our individual lives that form the collective. And not only is it generating personal static, but it can also generate and contribute to self-loathing, self-deprecation, beating oneself up, and ultimately convincing yourself out of your own highest path. So I wanted to bring to you all some awareness that I'm seeing both, in my world. I'm seeing it in the collective as well, around what's happening with the ascension and where we're at collectively. And in particular, the group of people that I'm assigned to are those that identify as twin flames, who work in the human heart grid and are anchoring love as a component for where humanity is going next. That's your influence as light workers here. So I wanted to share some things about that with you all here. There are those light workers who really are focused on, some of the crystalline grid, some who are focused on the earth grid system. There are others who are focused on the consciousness grid. But those of you who are here with me, our assignment is more human heart grid focused than anything else. And the more we can lighten up our own heart grids and really move into a space of allowing and acceptance for yourself and for other people and their journey, the lighter the heart grid gets and the more space we have to navigate into light and anchoring light for people, anchoring love for people. So if you're just joining, welcome. Please hit that thumbs up button. It is fantastic to have you all here. I'm really grateful. And I see we've got Kylie here as well. So wonderful to have you guys as well. Okay, so Kylie and Kat, I have made you guys, I guess they have this new feature called super moderators. So you should see in your moderation tools some new things that you're able to do, but I'm really trusting you guys to, support people in the chat, keep things light and uplifting. Thank you all. Okay. And in Istanbul, yay. Great to have you here as well. All right. So I want to start with a bit of an opening. I think you all know what the Ascension is, right? Everyone here, if you just type a yes in the chat, can you guys let me know? Like, yes, I've heard of Ascension. I know what Ascension is. If there's anyone who's like, what's this concept called Ascension? Just let me know and I'll give you a brief overview and point you to some resources with some additional information. Hey, the vent, welcome. If there's anyone who doesn't know, let me know. But if all you guys who are here can let me know, yes, I've heard of Ascension. I'm familiar with the construct. Hey, Ginger, Swatinanda, welcome. Awesome, Bivent. I hope you have a great day. And okay, good. Okay, so I'm not introducing new intel. When I first talked about the Ascension here on my channel, I think it was 2018, 2019, I had shared a download that I'll link about the Ascension and twins. I'll link that below this video. If someone just reminds me in the comments, like, hey, link that video, I'll put it there for you guys. But okay, cool. Yeah. You guys have all heard of the Ascension. Fantastic. Welcome, Otterly Spastic. That's wonderful. You're here from Idaho. Fantastic. Okay, so I don't need to give you a precursor on that, which I was prepared to do if you needed it, but it sounds like everyone here is good to go. So when it comes to the Ascension and the human heart grid and our particular work as twin flames, divine counterparts, this particular moment in time is facilitating a pretty major rewrite on not just systems in the world as a whole. And astrologically, we can see this through the work of 2020, of Pluto moving into Aquarius and Aquarian consciousness. We can see this movement unfolding astrologically in multiple different ways. The nodes shifting into that first sign of the zodiac and then beginning a completely new cycle once these 2.5 years are up, a new 12-year cycle for all of us, 18-year cycle for all of us collectively. There's so much major change unfolding for us collectively. And what's interesting about this is that the changes that are happening are allowing us to witness in real time a complete breakdown of world systems as we know it. We see that there's a breakdown when it comes to some of our financial systems, and thankfully that is happening slowly. Many people find a lot of fear come up with Pluto, but one of the things I'm really grateful for about Pluto's movement is that Pluto takes 248 years to get around the wheel. And that's a nice long time for anything that's going to be a major change to happen slowly so that things don't break and leave us all in crisis. I love that that's happening so slowly, but Pluto really deals with financial systems. And so we have seen, in the last 5 to 10 years, this new conversation about moving off of fiat to a different kind of currency and digital currency, the rise of digital currency. And thank goodness there's nice overlap here. It's not happening all at once, but that breakdown is unfolding in our lifetime. So money as a system is changing. We're seeing economies shift as well. And we've moved from more localized economies to a more global economy where we're understanding the interconnectedness. We can't just have, one economy, over, and we really got to see it in the last year with the way when we had the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we saw that the way that impacted global economies when it came to our food system, because Ukraine really holds some key components of global exports of wheat. And we saw that there was impact and fallout there. So our economies are becoming more deeply interconnected, and we're all awakening to the interconnectedness there and becoming more aware that what happens in your country has deep economic impact in my country, that we're not separate anymore, that we need to care what's happening everywhere, not just here in our own little bubble. We're also seeing not just the economic systems and the financial systems change, but we're also seeing workforces change as well. There's been an Uberization of the workforce that has moved and spread not just from, the United States workforce systems, but to global systems where we've got, companies and corporations moving to a model of being less responsible for their employees and their workers, where they used to provide things like a pension and healthcare and retirement plans and all of the resources that come with going to a location for work. We are seeing individuals now become responsible for that. And needing to do that on their own, unless, of course, they work in a factory or some other location. But we are definitely seeing this movement toward individuals turning on and turning off hours the same way you would if you drove for Uber or Lyft, working as it suits you on the time frame that it suits you, and operating your business affairs in a way that provides more autonomy. And we're also seeing the challenges with that as well. There's a almost always onness to your job. And this is why more and more unions are forming and striking to protect your capacity to earn a decent living now that you're responsible for more parts of things that institutions previously took care of for you, right? And so all of these changes are happening to world systems all at once, but the change that really can impact those of us in our particular corner of contribution are the changes that have to do with marriage, partnership, and love, and that system in particular. With this, we've been seeing, kind of global marriage rates fall, younger people pushing marriage out to later and later stages of life as they seek stability in high change waters at this time, looking for greater and greater opportunities to create self-establishment before looking for partner establishment. And within this, we've also witnessed, and this has been a multi-decade process, a breakdown of the fundamentals of historically what marriage has been built on, right? There has been the construct of marriage and partnership previously being focused on being exclusive to a man and a woman. Thruples weren't a thing. Now they are. Like 3 people would like to share in the benefits of marriage together. We've seen that we've seen an inclusion of marriage rights to people, extended to people who do not identify as just man or just woman. We've got an expansion of gender identity, an expansion of sexual orientation as well. And in this expansion, that kind of conference of what marriage used to be, which truly was a contract that conferred rights of property, rights of ownership. It was a conference of privilege and an impartation of these things: property, ownership, certain privilege. We're seeing this get expanded to groups who had legally previously been unable to partake of those benefits as it relates to the world system of marriage, right? And I'm not talking about religious ideology or spiritual parts of marriage. Right now, I'm just talking about the world systems. And we'll get to the spiritual components momentarily. And so historically, the legal system of marriage conferred all of these rights and ensured procreation of groups, genetic lines, and thus the projection into the future of our cultures, right? Because until more recently, I'd say probably about the 1960s, it was very frowned upon to marry outside of your culture in whatever way, shape, or form. And it still is in many places in the world, but certainly as our consciousness expands to understand how interconnected we are and how the same we are at our core, we're starting to see, okay, love is love. Let people love the way they want to love and express that. And let's let people have rights. The right to see one another if one gets sick and has to go into a hospital, right? The right to inherit property. If one dies and they chose to be married, that's who they want their property to go to, right? That conference of ownership or inheritance of money as well. Those are now extended beyond the limitations of culture. And with that, the legal construct of marriage previously ensuring kind of exclusivity of culture and customs and practices. With that also came the insurance of our prejudices and limiting belief systems that say we are like this and they are like that, and this is why we have to be separated. It created underneath this a lot of unequal access to society and its privileges, in particular for women originally, and then for many others as consciousness and humanity's diversity began to expand. The lower classes as well found themselves particularly disenfranchised and locked out of opportunities that would have ensured things like education to get to better stations in life, earning more money, and allowing greater resources for their offspring. With the rewrite, the breakdown that we've got going on right now, and this really came as a function of, more and more women standing for equal rights, more and more of the people who had been previously deemed lower class or disenfranchised, striving for equal pay, equal rights as well. We're starting to see the definition of marriage necessarily need to expand to be more inclusive of all the people. Because again, as the people are saying, look, I'm the same as you, at my core, And more people are starting to see that, realize that as families expand to include interracial marriages, same-sex marriages, intercultural, interreligious marriages, right? We're getting that one-to-one opportunity to say, yeah, my son-in-law, I come from a Jewish family, but my son-in-law is Muslim. He's a good guy. We're starting to see that expansion of consciousness through one-to-one interaction from people like you who are on the front lines with this. And so ultimately what's happening here as the ascension process, all of that stuff was like a preparation for the ascension process component to accelerate it. And the ascension process component, this expansion of consciousness, vibration, and frequency for the people here on Earth, is facilitating a breakdown of the institution of marriage to remake the foundation it was built on. And so foundationally, again, legally, I'm just talking about the legal components of this, what we saw was that its function was to confer rights of property ownership and privilege. That was its legal basis, to maintain that within family systems. Now that, and because of that, right, and there was all this like, inequality. Now that there's more equality, marriage cannot be built on just that, because what we had was the pendulum in one direction, creating marriage in a way that meant that people stayed in places that were unhealthy for them for extended periods of time in order to maintain property ownership and privilege, right? We saw if you found yourself in a love marriage, you were considered to be one of the lucky ones. Most people were finding themselves in marriages of expediency. Okay. And would stay for reasons having to do with that expediency. They didn't have the money to leave. They didn't have the resources to leave if they were being abused or neglected in any way. And so you and I in this conversation are at, if we could point to a timeline that extended into the future, the place we are at right now is right in the middle of this rewrite on what partnership and marriage and connection is all about. Because previously it would be about that conference of being able to confer rights to another individual who was outside of your family system. Now we have this being, instead of being about that, we have more and more people going, I have the rights that I need. Thank goodness evolution in human consciousness has brought us to this place where more and more people have better paying jobs. Perfect? No. Better? Yes. Okay. And so because of this, and we have this seeking of how can I get more established on my own, I'm not forced to create establishment through a marriage. We have a shifting in what marriage actually means. Men now have access to the things that previously only marriage would allow them to have access to. We have people, willing, men, women, and all the genders, willing to have sexual intimacy, where culturally previously that was very frowned upon outside of marriage. It was only accessible through the marriage bond. Access to family and children was something that was relegated exclusively to the realm of identifying as woman and womanhood. So to the extent that if, two people got divorced, the children were left with the mom by default, not the man. Women have access to equal pay Perfect? No, we know we have a long way to go. But it able for many women to create a way of living that supports themselves without necessarily needing a man. Yes. Being able to get lines of credit, buy houses, own a vehicle is accessible to not all, but more women in the world than was ever accessible to women previously without needing to have a man co-sign for them or vouch for them. Okay. And so, because there is access to society and all of its benefits outside of marriage that were previously exclusive to marriage, we have an underlying question. So, okay, why do I want to have partnership now? Why do I want to get married? And happening alongside of this is a redefinition, because much of what it meant to be a man or a woman broke, as the definition of it used to be, well, you had to provide if you were a man. You had to have enough money to feed a family of 4 minimum. You had to work if you were you were relied upon to be an earner as a quote unquote man. This was the definition of it. And if you weren't quote unquote earning in that way, you were not quote unquote a man. And there were tons of, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, different types of societal and cultural norms that reinforced that definition of masculinity. You work under any conditions. You have to be strong. You have to be tough. You guys can even name some here in the chat that reinforce those standard definitions of what it meant to be a man. You have to work. No matter what happens, the most important thing about you is what you accomplish and achieve. And if you haven't achieved anything, you're nothing. I'm starting to see a total breakdown of that. And because that is happening, there's a redefinition of masculinity underway as we speak. I spoke about that some in the most recent Lightworker energy update I published. And just before that, there was a redefinition of femininity. There have been multiple waves of feminism, certainly originating in the US, but through Europe as well, around, look, I don't want to be relegated to a kitchen and being barefoot and having babies. I can be more than that. I can do more than that. I want to do and be more than that, right? Yeah, Carla put it in the chat that construct got to be strong like a bull, right? And the breakdown of women's identity is this is what a woman is and can be and ought to be is shifting as well, right? So with all of this, as we have these new definitions unfolding in real time, Taria, holding vulnerability back, right? There's this construct for men that if you cry, you're weak, or if you feel things, anything, something, you're not a man, you're a sissy, or some of those words that people would put on men to keep them in alignment with the world construct that men have to be machines and keep working and keep earning, right? And you may even notice the breakdown of some of the constructs for women as well. You can put those in the chat as well. And so all of these systems have been breaking for a long time, which means that, these identity, what marriage is built on, what coming together is built on, because there was a need, if men were that one way, that women had to be a different way, the opposite way, in order for them to need each other. Now that we are finding ourselves more and more free than we've ever been to be who we need to be as a person, as people, as the person and the individual that God created you in his infinite creativity, right? We're starting to see the world systems are needing to shift to keep up. Yeah, Kat, that's a good one, that women can't do mechanics or engineering or field work. That's exactly, or construction. Exactly. Okay. Those systems that kept us separate and unequal are breaking. So therefore, how we participate in those systems are breaking. The unexamined leap into the marriage contract, when the very roles and identities that contract was built on is revealing itself an unsafe bet, as the role of women in that marriage is less and less defined. Men is even more undefined at this time, as the definitions of gender identities are shifting. And there are those who want it to go back to the way it was, right? They don't like this shifting, and the uncertainty and the unknownness about it. You'll hear people really rally and advocate as this breaking is happening. It's unavoidable. It's going to keep going. But as this breaking is happening, we're seeing a strong response from the people who were very attached to that old system. That system's starting to die. And they're advocating for even stricter definitions of man and woman, and reinforcing, the gender norms and sexual orientation norms that we have previously seen. And at this particular moment in the timeline of human history, it can go a lot of different ways. In a moment of chaos, many things can be birthed. But those of you here on this channel, listening to this conversation, identifying as twin flame or divine counterpart, activated by love in a way that reveals to you the true opportunity to shift humanity's consciousness around a concept that keeps us together, marriage, you all are starting to advocate, maybe, just maybe, maybe humans, it might be a good idea if we started to make the lifelong bond of marriage and partnership based on love and not on expediency. What if love was the foundation and not property and rights and ownership and privilege? What if we chose to be with people that we had a heart connection to, not an inheritance connection to? What if we chose to be with people based on the fact that, we feel compelled to be our best selves for them as a human, rather than being our most accomplished human being, rather than being our most accomplished selves for them as a human doing? What if that bond, that lifelong bond, is about more than just money? What if it is, and mating, what if it's about love? What if it's about something bigger? And so there are forces here on earth that are advocating for other things, but our contribution is this. Okay. EL says the biggest divide is that we have an entire generation of women who were told they can be more than a wife and a mother. We continue the old narrative of what a man is based on material success. Yes, EL. And men are coming into this. They're starting to have conversations about what a new definition of being a man can be. Grandma V, I was told I'm mesmerizing. My counterpart's in awe of me, because being single suits me in a way that brings out the best in me. Yeah. Men can be stay-at-home dads. They can cry. They can have feelings. Yes, EL, that's coming online now. We're seeing more and more and more men start to own that this is a way of being a true man, a real man that doesn't diminish themselves as men, but rather enhances their wholeness as a person. Elizabeth Link says, hello, beautiful. Yes, I'm glad you made it here as well. And so for millennia, we have seen the damage that partner bonds that are forced can have on a person and a family, right? That you share your most intimate parts with, but that you never share your heart with, right? We have seen, people live in very loveless marriages, and those children grow up very emotionally deficient and really struggle to have connection later in life. We've seen people get married and choose to stay married because they're quote unquote supposed to, but actually hate each other. And that type of hostility and contempt in a home has led to infidelity, and that has damage to children as well. We've seen people live in abusive relationships verbally and physically because they never healed their own childhood issues, right? And that have negative impact on children as well, and on family systems as well. And so this construct that we should share the most intimate parts with another person without ever sharing our heart with them has fallen. That humanity globally has woken up to the fallacy of that type of life. And it's more common now that people will refuse marriage than to enter into a marriage like that, or will delay it or defer it than to enter into a marriage like that. And so we're seeing more and more of that now. And so it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's happening in stages, and you all are on the leading edge of that consciousness here, because it is truly that heart part of us, that part of us that has the ability to love, and I love it. There's an identity statement. I belong to a church where I live that has an identity statement that's multi-level, but the part of it that really speaks to me is that we have been commanded to love beyond the limits of our prejudices. And those of you who are here, I'm sure, really understand and are aware of what that means in a deep way. Many twins, somebody had put on my channel a comment a couple of weeks ago, what about the age gap, K Moon? And I was like, that's just the beginning of it. I mean, as long as everyone's consenting adults, I got nothing to say. Do your thing with twin flames. But many of you, it's beyond that. It's race gaps, culture gaps, religious gaps. It is financial income gaps. It is education gaps, right? Like, you guys are starting to really see that the bond of love transcends all of it in every way. And really on the leading edge, showing your family, showing your friendship groups, okay, we need to be operating on a more love-based currency when it comes to choosing lifelong connection and bond. Okay. Because it's our heart that tames us, that directs our moral compass. And when love isn't present, instead of operating from the heart, we can operate from the ego. And the shadow side of the heart, it's not great, but the shadow side of the ego can be even more abusive and damning. It's very survivalistic in its components. And so there's a calling now and an urgency now for those of us here on earth to affect the narrative arc of humanity's future when it comes to love, connection, bonding, and marriage. And that's what you all here are doing. So I share that to say that the current moment in time it's not easy, but my hat's off to you. I salute you. We are all navigating this present moment, which it can seem like it's filled with separation, but I am telling you, it is not. It's actually filled with a cosmic soup or an isness that is all the things and no one thing in particular, as an emergent narrative and storyline is going to take place to guide us into a future around what marriage is and what it isn't, what partnership is and what it isn't, what connection is and what it isn't. That has yet to emerge. We're in the place where it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like there's a breakdown, but what's happening is that there is this fertile ground for something new to be birthed. And you and I's advocacy for where we go from here has everything to do with love anchoring as a dominant and guiding frequency for partnership and connection going forward. Okay. And so the encounters you're having with your person, the ways in which you're navigating it and trying to understand it, the explanations that seem absolutely cray-cray when they come out of your mouth to your family, to your friends, are actually starting to take root within them and help them begin to make more liberating decisions in life and in love than the narrative arc of the last 2 millennia. Okay. So it's new. It's different. You are different. And we will all grow through this moment into what's next together, but your influence cannot be understated. Okay. And so with that, there's a lot of shifts going on in the right now moment, because the ascension is well underway. These changes that are unique to where we influence are also well underway. They're happening, whether we, sit in our rooms and, eat our peanuts or not, eat our popcorn or not. These changes they are happening, and they're happening rapidly. And with them can come some really unique experiences to your energy grid as an individual, to your mindset as that energy grid changes, to the responses of people with you in your circle as you shift, and your circle will also shift as a part of this. So I'm going to walk you through some of the right now moment changes so that you can just have the validation. This is the path you're on. You're not crazy. You are, in fact, doing it right. And you just need to keep going and keep growing. Okay. After I'm finished with these particular symptoms, I've compiled, I think, about 7 of them. After I've walked you through this, I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to take some questions, number 1, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to join me in an exclusive community where we're going to go even deeper, because it goes so beyond just these symptoms. Many of you actually are coming into what I like to call ascension abilities. We hear very often, ascension symptoms, like things that you might experience that may have you experience a general sense of unease as the foundation we're sitting on shifts. But we're going to move. We are at the point in the timeline where we're moving beyond the unease and into abilities. And these abilities are actually part of what's moving humanity's consciousness in this higher level direction. And I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to really see some of that in this year's Q&A with Kay, should you decide now to enroll today. Okay, so let's get into the ascension symptoms, and then we'll go into questions. Yeah, Tasha acknowledges, she says, I see a lot of people around me changing. Pauline says, the more women can love themselves and men can support them. And the more we can be gentle and kind to the planet and save it and our future home of the mother guy. Yeah. And the more men can love themselves and women can support them, it's going to be better as well. Okay. Elizabeth is having some good revelations. That is awesome. I'm happy to see your revelations. Yeah, star travelers feeling the unease. Yeah. Okay, let's get into the ascension symptoms that are for this moment, and they're going to shift even again in future moments. One of the things that I've seen a lot of people report in sessions with me in the recent year or two has been working through a lack of desire to work and a displacement syndrome. I mentioned earlier, there's been an Uberization of the workforce and a changing of the workforce worldwide. Global industries are changing, and we personally are changing with it. What's happening at the individual and energetic level is that some of the things that you will do are not yet in existence yet. They are yet to be created. And so I'm seeing a lot of people going, I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I fit. There's something I feel called to, but I can't find it. I can't feel it. And this is, I'm going to be honest, I think in my own personal incarnation, my whole life has been this way. I can see it in my chart. There are a few indicators that my role here on earth is supposed to change significantly at multiple different inflection points. And so some of you probably have the same thing in your chart. To the outside world, it may look like, oh, they're a jack of all trades, master of none. But what's actually happening is you're here for very specific things, for very specific people at very specific times, and you get navigated to those with an extraordinary amount of divine support to facilitate your success at being in the right place at the right time for the right people for the right moment. And then you move on, like just like that. You delivered what you came to deliver, and then you move on to the next thing. And so some of you are experiencing a general sense of feeling displaced as this shifting in the workforce is happening and trying to figure out, where do I fit in this? Some of where you're supposed to fit doesn't exist. Another good example of this, if you're like, I still don't quite understand, K-Moon, when we were children, YouTube didn't exist. And yet, some of you are in the right place at the right time, being YouTubers with specific audiences meant to deliver specific messages in this moment. But there was no way for you to have said, when I grow up, what I want to be is. And so there's a sense of feeling maybe wandering and wondering where you fit, because where you're supposed to be hasn't been created yet on earth. It's coming. And so this ascension symptom can have you feeling a bit like you're treading water, at a current job, like you're punching a clock. Even jobs that make a so-called difference, you're also going to see the complete fallout and breakdown of your interest in achievement, acquisition, stuff, and accomplishment. You're going to start to see these things no longer motivate you. And you may have been a person who was previously very motivated by achievement of goals, acquisition of things, accomplishment in your field. You may find yourself going, yeah, I don't really care. I don't care. I don't care. And it will be important, very critical, to not mistake that for depression, because you're not depressed. You are actually in the midst of a major shifting. And it's important in this to just stay curious. Okay. Stay curious for where are you led in terms of your curiosity. use that curiosity as a compass. It's going to be your best friend to get you where you're supposed to be at the timing in which you're supposed to be there. Okay. Next, we're going to see the next ascension symptom is being able to see the patterns of yourself, people, and the world with greater ease instead of being caught up in the patterns and reactive to the patterns. Being more able to extricate yourself from the downward spirals that people find themselves in and pull yourself up with greater ease. And the downward spirals are very common, like in social settings, especially after really difficult world events have unfolded. You'll see people want to get into commiseratory conversations about how bad it is, how awful it is, what a terrible job so-and-so world leader is doing. They should have done this. They should have done that. Should. You'll see a lot of shoulding on people and people shoulding on themselves in the process. You'll also see that kind of downward spiral of like what's wrong with situations and circumstances unfolding. And people don't even realize they're doing this. I was having a conversation recently with someone. I needed to go to an event. I was traveling with someone. And, they were explaining something at a job that they were at that they loved. They got to work with, people that they loved in a situation that they loved, and they really enjoyed it. But I had to ask 3 different times, 3 different ways. So what was it you loved about it? Because they wanted to tell me all the things that were wrong with the people. And I was like, wait, go back, focus. What was it you loved about it again? And it was like pulling teeth a little bit, not a lot. Eventually they got there. Oh, I loved this about it because my boss was like this and the people were like that. And I got to, work in this way. And I was like, yeah, stay there. Focus on the good things. Because as you continue to invite people to join you on that upward spiral, you're going to find that your gentle redirection when you're in proximity to people, either work or family gatherings, really helps people continue on that path even after that moment. It's funny because that person that ended up texted me like recently, like, oh my gosh, like a joy experience a few days since. And the joy experience was just enjoying other people's joy, watching them win. She was watching a sports event and they were kind of like some of like firsts of their culture, firsts of their gender to win certain events. And she was like, I'm crying. I'm so overjoyed. And I was like, yes, stay in the joy place. Please, let's all stay in the joy place. And so you'll see that gentle redirection toward the upward spiral with the people around you pulls them into that. Like the upward spiral can be infectious. And the more you share that, the more you'll see people moving on to it. Okay. And you'll see these patterns of the world so clearly as people really participate in them unconsciously. You personally are going to be able to see, oh yeah. I do see that pattern and I don't want to participate in it. And so you'll start to non-participate and move toward lightness, ease, joy, gratitude, flow, releasing struggle, worry, anxiety, and fear. You're going to start to see the traps of the world system more clearly and consciously be able to recognize that the only way to dismantle these is to stop engaging with them, to stop engaging with conversations where people are expressing hate or anger, separation. Stop engaging in conversations about lack and I don't have. Stop engaging in conversations around fear. You're going to realize that fighting it only keeps you trapped to it and ultimately feeds its continuance in your life patterns. And so you're going to start to find that you are intentionally shifting toward upward spirals instead of waiting for life to bring you upward spirals. The third ascension symptom here is a lot of indifference. You know, find yourself feeling indifferent to, it's not that you don't care, it's that it's not for you to shift people. You're going to see indifference to the stories that people are choosing to live, and really seeing that it's the story, which can be written whenever they are ready, that they are choosing, because it is a choice to live. And you'll find yourself walking away without engaging in the drama, without being able to bless and release with minimal stress, to let people find their way to what they need rather than stress and struggle with people to help them get what they need. So when that gentle redirection isn't in you, either because you don't have the energy or that's just where they're choosing to be, they want to be in a heavier place for whatever reason. There's something in that space that feeds them and serves them. You're going to find yourself going, okay, that's fine, with an inner knowing that they'll find their pathway to the upward spiral when they're ready. People who bring conflict to you will lead to you choosing to just let them go, because you can see the bigger picture that we're all living out our consciousness as others are living out their consciousness, kind of like bumper cars at the state fair. We have these things called state fairs here in the United States. I'm sure some of you have seen them in amusement parks and other areas of the world, where you get in a little electronically programmed car that is meant to bump into other people as it redirects and takes you on a crazy ride. And it's fun and it's silly, but you're going to start to see that that's what life is. It's bumper cars. And what used to foment you, catalyze you, upset you, activate you, hook you into helping people out and working things out and trying to pull people along with you, it just doesn't do it anymore, because you can see whether they're conscious of it or not, we're all living exactly the life we want to live. There's this quote from Keanu Reeves that really illustrates this. He said, "I'm at the stage of life where I stay out of discussions. Even if you say to me 1 + 1 = 5, you're right. Have fun. Go on with your life." And you may even find that you're in that place personally where you're like, yeah, okay, you're right. Have fun. Go forth. I'm not going to argue with you. And you may see, especially at this period of time, I'll add to that, as Pluto is dancing at the end of Capricorn, Pluto dealing with power, Capricorn dealing with authority. And they're two different things, two different constructs. Those of you who have set yourself up in positions to assist other people or guide other people, you may find not a lot, that's actually not true, people who struggle with those two constructs for themselves, owning their power and being an authority in their own lives, will take issue with you operating your authority in your own life and owning your own power. You'll see their projection of their struggle with this onto you. And it won't happen a lot. I'm not seeing that happen a lot, but you'll see, like, a couple of people here and there go, "You're doing it wrong and you need to be this way and you need to be that way." And the truth is, okay, so I'm not going to be that for you. I bless and release you to find what you need. And they'll say, "Why won't you fight with me?" And you'll say, "Because I don't have to." I don't need to fight with you. You can find what you need. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Go get it. I'm not holding you back. But their stories are, and you'll see them try to work that on you, and you can just excuse yourself from that conversation. They'll find their way. Okay, so that's number 3. I'm curious, in the chat, have you guys seen symptom 1, 2, or 3 so far playing out? Number 1, you're starting to see a lack of attachment to work, achievement, and accomplishment. You'll start to see that. Have you guys seen that kind of like, I'm not motivated by those things anymore? Number 2, or feeling a sense of like, I don't know where I fit. That was number 1. If you guys are seeing number 1, put that in the chat. Number 2, you can see world patterns really clearly, and you're starting to feel really non-reactive, nonplussed by them. And you're intentionally finding yourself with greater access to the upward spiral. You're not stuck in dark night of the soul energy. You're just kind of like, all right, let me focus on something positive. And you're just able to get there better. Put a 2 in the chat if you're seeing that. And number 3, a lot more indifference to people and their stories. If you're seeing that one, and like you're not hooked by people and their stories anymore. If you're seeing this one, put number 3 in the chat. Yeah, so it's a lot of different stuff going on. I'm going to get to the next one. I know a lot of people in my recent readings have been saying this one. Number 4 is being alone, or really enjoying your own company and your own solitude. And this one has been extraordinarily prevalent for me since about 2020, but escalated in, I would say, 2022. Where I have just outgrown who I used to be, and rapidly. Like it to me, it feels slow, but to the people around me, they're like, oh, wait, where'd you go? And I'm like, off the known map that we used to share. Like, I'm not there anymore. But really outgrowing who you used to be and what you used to think, and no longer being able to connect in your previously established connections. This can happen gradually, can also happen all at once, and it can really impact your social life, your family life, can impact your sex life. It can impact your ability to succeed at work in the social components of what work requires. If you're in a job that requires, casual interactions with other people to, kind of grease the get things done wheels, you may find that the social components of trying to be interested in your coworkers' lives, or doing those kind of extracurricular coworker related activities, you're like, yeah, no. I can't. I just can't. Please don't make me do it. You may also find in this a general lack of that you may also find that your conversation is boring, but your internal work and spiritual growth has become absolutely fascinating. Like, you spend a lot of time, with your downloads or channeling or sleeping or journaling. You're spending a lot more time in classes or with coaches where the growth metric is around your spiritual growth and connecting in those ways with people. If you are relating to this, definitely put a number 4 there in the chat. Ella says, yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Jen Brown says, yep, 1 through 4, all of them. Taria says definitely all of them in a very clear relief. Eunice says it's been ever since 2020, to be honest. Jacob says all of it. Star Traveler, true. Swati says this resonates. I feel tired if I've had to interact with people for a long time. And I was always like that, but now it's even more so. And people could see it too on me in group settings previously, because I used to try to force myself to be social with people. I gave up. I can't anymore. I don't even try. Very good. Ooh, Vixie Pixie. I'm going to get to that one in a minute. The magic. We're going to get to that one. Okay. Amazing. Let me get to the next symptom for you guys, so you guys can see what's going on. With this number 4, you may also find a lack of interest and social connection, in particular through social media, as the connection themes are no longer fun or engaging for you. Your friendships may shift, especially as your monad shifts. It was the download and the revelation my guidance team gave to me was that many of us incarnated with monads and historically, your monad you were going to be with for, the duration of your lifetime in many ways. Not now. monads are actually shifting. That core soul group that you incarnated with is moving. And so there's people moving out of your particular group and into other groups and other people that you're going to be in group with at this time. As this shift is going on, and you may find it challenging, you may find it relieving, depending upon your orientation to this kind of change. You're going to see that your friendships shift as people not in alignment with your particular rapid growth fall out of frequency with you, but new people are becoming available very slowly. And some of this is the timing, because right now we're in a period of breakdown. We're going to come into a period of breakthrough and break out shortly, but right now there's a disintegration going on, and then the reintegration is unfolding as we get closer to the end of the 2020s. But yeah, you may find friendships shift during this period of time. Like I said, some of this is the timing of what's happening right now, but some of this is going to be about non-contamination. You'll find that you may be becoming very sensitive or just downright allergic to negativity, complaining, judgmentalness, criticalness, and people who are critical of themselves and critical of you. You may find like, look, like that is not a way of interacting that you're willing to engage in any longer. As you step into greater allowingness, pettiness, discouragement laden communication, gossip, people who just want to talk about other people and their problems all the time, not interesting. You'll find people who are mired in their problems but never seem to find a way to the personal empowerment required for solution. You're going to find yourself very sensitive to these things, so much so that you may find yourself doing odd things, like just walking away, like mid conversation, just leaving. People who can't maintain ease, can't maintain gratitude, can't maintain joy. You'll find that you're feeling like you can no longer sit with people who sit in darkness to protect your own mindset and forward momentum. And so some of this, like I said, is about non-contamination, because you need to be alone while you are transforming in your most sensitive points, so you can grow correctly without including things that would dent or misshape your foundation. When babies are first born, their bones aren't fully solid, and particularly their skulls. You have to be very careful with the shape of their skulls because they're still soft. They're not fully hardened. And so some of this is really keeping yourself out of the atmosphere of fear, of cultural doctrines, of separation consciousness, and the momentum of other people's lives and the atmosphere of other people's lives. Some of your aloneness at this time is actually protection. And so it's really important to understand that. I was raised Christian, and while I'm not traditionally Christian in that respect, I certainly consider myself a student of the teacher in this way. And so there's a construct in the world of Christianity called consecration. And if you look up the etymology of the word, it talks about it about being set aside to be made holy. Now, if you look up the etymology, the root of the word holy, you get something being restored to wholeness or its divinity. And so that's essentially what's happening here, as you may be preferring your own company. And it's not that anything's wrong, you're not doing it wrong. And it's not that you won't have friends, but this is a moment in time where your sensitivity is helping to reshape the format of who you're going to be or the programs that you're running. And so giving yourself that permission to let this installation take the time that it's going to take. Okay. And some of this is needing to not have input from the outer world. For some of you who are really doing a lot of leadership, there are those of you who are in a place of you're supposed to be messengers or deliverers of frequencies at this time. Some of you have very particular and key frequencies that some of you are being very. It's interesting because I have a friend who's got this going on, and we don't spend a lot of time together for the reasons I've already mentioned, but I watch her. Her schedule is always full. She's never being still. She's always out and about in the world. Every time I talk to her or, happen to like get a text from her, she's got this or that or the other thing going on that she's contributing to, but she's not necessarily very social. And I can tell that she's being positioned in places because there's a particular frequency she's carrying that needs to be disseminated to people. And so, in social settings, moments when I've had to, we've been out and we've had to interact, I see her do far more listening than she does talking, far more, and her kind of like way of interacting is just being present. And so some of you may find that that's you. Alternatively, some of you are going to be seeing that you need less input because you're still cultivating a frequency, or you're still cultivating messages that you need to deliver to other people. But here's the thing, when your consciousness is open and porous to receive from the outer realms, it is extraordinarily receptive to these denser realms as well. And so you may find that you need this kind of period of consecration in order to receive the information that you need to disseminate from these higher realms and receive it correctly, receive it in an atmosphere that doesn't have the noise of the old or the atmosphere of what you need to help humanity transcend. Some of it is like, okay, I need to be over here because I can't have any of that over there-ness while I'm receiving this, because if I take on that over there-ness while I'm receiving this, it's going to come out incorrectly for other people. And I need to kind of keep this clean so that it can come out clean for other people. So some of you are going to see that, and that when and where you socialize yourself is going to be few and far in between. And others of you, because there's a particular frequency you're supposed to be disseminating, you're going to find yourself being very out there, but not necessarily taking much in, kind of like, let me just drop my frequency, be here, be present, and then move on. It's going to be different for different people. So if you're seeing that, definitely put that in the chat. I'd love to hear your experiences with that. The fifth symptom you may be seeing is becoming very sensitive and allergic to pain porn and fear mongering as art. Naturally disengaging yourself from music, from television, from movies that portray only humanity's pain, only humanity's dark side, separation, longing, unfulfilling, or the basest of humanity's motives. You'll find yourself like there are a few television shows that are here in the United States that like everyone raves about. They absolutely love. One of them is television show on one of our stations called HBO. It's called Succession. And it really showcases the basest of human greed unfolding within a family and the way the family just breaks as a result of it. And people love the show and they're like, oh, you got to watch it, Kay. And I've tried and it breaks my brain. That's the best way I can put it. I'm like, oh my, like after I've watched a few episodes of it, like I've had to like I notice in the 72 hours following, my frequency is different. Like I feel bad. And I'm like, okay, I can't expose myself to this anymore. It's just too toxic. And you'll find that the same thing that you're not interested in with people is the same stuff you're just not interested in entertainment. You're going to find yourself really intentionally turning to focus on humanity's light and really unable to participate in kind of mindless consumption and taking in of pain porn anymore, or people who dwell in pain spaces. You won't be able to just quote unquote hold space anymore. You'll have come to the end of your ability to hold space. Some of you will be able to, because you're actually able to shift space. And you'll find, I'm going to talk about all that when we get into the class number 1 of Q&A with Kay. I'm going to talk about that some of you have the ability to shift space. And those of you who have that capacity will be able to stay in space and connection with people. But those of you who don't have it, you're not going to be able to. If you're seeing number 5, definitely put a 5 in the chat. I'm super curious if you guys are familiar with that one. Yeah. So Lynn says she's download central much of the time. Yeah. Yeah. A heart-led life with Lawrence is a spot on for what she's going through. Yeah. Good. Chris says she had to shut off a show the other day because it was hurting me. Yeah, you'll find that it hurts a lot as humanity's sensitivity is coming up. Yeah, all of that. Okay, so next one is you're going to find, and Kylie just mentioned it. Kylie, I don't know, you're psychic. Diet and health will suddenly shift. You're going to find your diet and health maintenance practices are shifting dramatically in this energy. What used to work no longer works, and what you used to be able to eat, your body now rejects. Even if you had what you'd considered a quote unquote clean diet, you will find your body is now reacting to things very differently. A part of you wants to consider it maybe getting older, but another part of you knows you're being asked to upgrade and elevate what you eat. And so that is something I'm seeing a lot of people even ask me about in session, like, what's going on with my health? Because I've got mysterious illnesses and they're coming out of nowhere. Some of you are also seeing that sensitivities you're having to food that you've never had a problem with before and believe you shouldn't have a problem with now are occurring. And I tell people this regularly, like, have you considered maybe it's, the dairy? There's research on this on the internet. And not to say that it's dairy or this or that or the other thing, but have you considered it's this? And they're like, I used to eat it all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but you're changing. It's not the same. And so too is, some of the way the food systems have been evolving. They've been changing as well. Some of our world food production systems have changed so significantly that the output looks the same, but the input is definitely not what it used to be. And so you'll find that your body is revealing that to you. Your body is saying, yeah, you used to eat this, but I can't have that anymore. It doesn't work in the new way that they're making it. So we're going to talk a bit more about the way the cellular spiritual structure of the body is changing in Q&A with Kay. That starts next week. But I wanted to say that one, if any of you have experienced that, if you want to put in the chat how your body or what your diet and health has shifted to, that may help somebody. Number 7, your relationship to time has become very different. You'll find it either can move very fast or it can move very slow. You're also going to find that there are some major changes in your relationship to productivity. You're only able to work when you can work. You're unable to work or deliver work when it's just not time. Deadlines deadlines are kind of crazy for you. You're only able to work when it's time to work. And there is flow in that way. You find productivity in that way. And this probably pertains more so to those of you who work for yourselves, because you don't really have that type of leeway when you work for somebody else. But you'll find that when you work, when there's flow there, opportunity happens, openness happens, you get more done. It's unexplainable and unjustifiable. You may have unexplainable and unjustifiable needs to wait when it's time to wait, and then work when it's time to work. And you may find that your productivity is regulated by energetic alignment of all cooperative forces more than external deadlines. And so the counsel for this is to just trust the nature of the universe to have your back as you get in sync with it, and not force yourself into artificial deadlines where you can avoid it. Okay. And we're getting to the last two here. You'll notice your energy shifts other people's energy. Okay. That your vibration and frequency can shift the energy in entire rooms when you walk in. And there are correlates with the elements that I'll talk about in the bonus session of the Q&A with Kay program, the full program. As many of you, I've been hearing this in my sessions as well, are able to shift a lot more than just human energy systems as your clairkineticism has become activated. But for the purposes of this conversation, you'll see people responding to your light in extreme ways, either finding yourselves in situations of great favor and great gifting from people who are like, they don't know why, but they feel the need to bless you, to support you, to help you. You'll find that as you step more into this frequency of alignment of who you're really called to be, more and more people just are like, yes, I want to be with you. And they just do things for you. You'll also find people doing a little bit of projection or fault finding with you in ways that reveal to you the story they're living, like we talked about earlier. You're going to find that you're able to do things like call in or push out contact and communication or responses from people without needing verbal communication. This is part of that movement that I've been talking about in the Lightworker energy updates in the astrology, that there's a movement in particular in 2023 from perceiving energy to creating it, to being able to read a circumstance, to being able to influence a circumstance. And so you'll be able to see some of this, that you're able to do that. And with that comes an ability as you walk into situations with people by your soul intention, shifting the way they're interacting with each other and interacting with you. Okay. So these are the 8 ascension symptoms, and I'm going to answer some of your questions in a moment. And I want to tell you that now is the time, if you've got questions for me about anything I've shared or anything you're experiencing, now is the time to put your questions in the chat. But first, I want to validate for you that this stuff can feel challenging to be someone who may be going through this first. I know some of you are first in your family, first in your friendship group, first in your neighborhood, to be going through some of these things. When you're going through all of this at the same time that the global workforce is shifting, right? We've got the marriage model and relationship models shifting. We've got the financial models shifting. We've got food systems shifting. So money, work, food, and relationship are all dramatically changing at the same time, right? It can feel a little bit daunting. It may not. Some of you may find it very liberating. To figure this stuff, how to navigate it. And it can even evoke a little bit of fear. And it can be even more challenging when you don't know what your purpose is and you're deeply unfulfilled in your current work, but scared to leave it because you know you need the money. You're sensitive to other people's energy and have no light worker armor or inconsistent light worker armor. So you're drained at the end of every day, every week, especially with family or friends. given the ways that they live in the world systems as if they are just the way things are. It may be challenging, especially when you have no idea how to organize your time, your energy, or your money, so that there can be no real grounding to your day-to-day life, no order, no structure, just a never-ending list of things to do and pay for that feels like you're just on a hamster wheel instead of consciously creating a life you really want, whether you have a job or whether you're working for yourself. Can also be really confusing when some of us, came from lack consciousness, raised on things like, well, money doesn't grow on the trees, or, we can't afford that, or constructs such as, you can't make money doing this, or you can't make money doing that. Who knew people could make money on YouTube, reading memes? There's a guy who I subscribe to called One Topic at a Time. Love him. He deems his channel the channel for all the beardos and weirdos. And this is how he makes his money. He will go to Reddit, read memes in a funny voice, and this is how he makes his money. Like, who knew? Like, but if you were raised, you can't make money doing that. Of course, you're going to have a limiting belief. Of course, you're going to have fears. Of course, you're going to feel stuck. And you may really feel guilty for using your gifts to help people and get paid for them. You may automatically discount everything you offer when the construct of money is confronting. And worst of all, we're all at this major inflection point in world history and in our collective spiritual journeys. But if you've been feeling isolated and you've got no one to talk to about it, it can make you feel a little bit cray-cray. And so this is why I built this year's Q&A with Kay, and I invite you to join me in it. Q&A with Kay is an opportunity for you to join an exclusive Lightworker community that works through these concepts with guidance and support to facilitate your next step in your ascension journey. This particular year's Q&A with Kay is Lightworker focused. We're going to do a little bit of twin flame stuff, but we're definitely going to focus more exclusively on the totality of the Lightworker journey. I'm going to drop the link here in the chat for you. So if you'd like to enroll now, you absolutely can. The program is 5 weeks long. Start September 1st with a bonus session. That's a part 2 of this particular conversation. And it gives you an opportunity to, first of all, talk to people who have been where you've been. Second of all, get guidance and coaching. If you've got questions about how to navigate some of the more sensitive parts of this process, you're going to find that we're going to talk through some of these things in the program. And secondly, we're going to have an opportunity, since this one is so Lightworker focused, for those of you who want to share your gifts and find an audience. I'm going to give you an opportunity to network and talk to one another and work with one another and expand your business. Okay. So enrollment ends in 10 days and 10 hours. So now's the time to sign up. It's going to be $144 USD for the 5-week program until midnight tonight. It will be $177 after. That's the normal price for 5-week programs with me, $177. All the sessions are 30 to 40 minutes of revelation and teaching, followed by roughly 2 to 3 hours of open Q&A. I'm going to try to keep it closer to the 2-hour mark. A lot of people in the feedback forums shared that they like closer to the 2-hour mark. But we're going to talk about Ascension abilities as a follow-up to this conversation on Friday of this week. Okay. So I talked to you guys a lot about some of the challenges. There are some special gifts that you guys have as light workers that are starting to come online now. I want you to know what they are and how to use them. In the second session, we're going to talk about knowing your purpose. Many people ask me to look at their mission based on their astrology. And yes, I can see it in your chart, but I can also see it in your life patterns. And I'm going to work you through a process to help you know how to see your purpose and your mission. We're going to talk about light worker tools and protection so that you guys can get out and about and around each other a little bit more and seal your energy from negativity and darkness. We're also going to talk through some practices and resources for turning on your light in dark places. We're going to talk about mastery with money and energy exchange. Very practical, tactical. You've probably heard, yep, money's an energy or time is money. These things, money, time, and energy are all connected. And we're going to talk through some of the spiritual practices with finances that may have been holding you back and keeping you doing your light work in lack. That's not the way this is supposed to be. You can live an abundant life as a light worker. We're going to talk through some of the spiritual principles of that so that you can get out of discounting, get out of, feeling bad about charging what you're worth. Okay. Lastly, we're going to talk about mastery with time and space. And so many of you have struggled with, density and some of the energy of working and keeping yourself in tune with time, and time feeling like, when is it going to happen, K-Moon? Look at the chart. Tell me, when am I going to get married? We're going to talk about some mastery with time and space and really being able to work time and space to your advantage so that you can have a bigger bridge between the 3D timeline that you're experiencing your material world on and your 5D timeline where you're experiencing your spiritual growth and beyond, so that there can be less separation between them. Okay. Now, Q&A with Kay will begin next Friday. All the sessions are on Zoom. They are chat supported. And about 30 to 40% of people who join Q&A with Kay do so just to get access to the recordings because the time just doesn't work for their schedule or their time zone. So there is a way, if you have questions, to be able to share your questions. I will answer them and you can still participate in the community. Like I said, we're going to do a lot more focus this year on Lightworker connections and exchanges for those of you who are really looking for opportunities to be in community, share your gifts, find audience. There's going to be some more ways for you guys to do that worldwide. Okay. It's okay if you don't know what your light work is. Totally fine. Definitely join. But if you are in a dark night of the soul and you just need community, I'm going to be very transparent with you. This is not a dark night of the soul or shadow work group. This group is going to be more focused on practical application of moving through density as a light worker. If you are in a place where you are moving through a dark night of the soul, I strongly recommend that you use this opportunity to jump into support with either a coach or a counselor who understands it, or a community that's very focused on moving through that or moving through shadow work, so that you can get the themes, get the support, get the regulation for your nervous system. This program will not offer that. And I really want you to find yourself in the right place for where you're at. Okay. But for those of you who know, okay, yeah, I'm ready to be in a conversation about 1010 Did you guys just see that? Oh my gosh. I love it when the numbers align like that. But yeah, for those of you who know, like, you really need this kind of support, this kind of community, this kind of light, this kind of direction, now's your invitation to join. We start on Friday. Okay. And enrollment will close not this Wednesday, but the following. And I want you to be able to jump in as soon as you're ready. Okay. So very exciting stuff. I will put the link in the chat one more time. It'll also be below the video. I really hope you guys decide to join. We are going to get into some community questions now. I promised you I would answer questions about what we spoke about earlier, and I'm going to get into fulfilling that for you now. So if you have questions, now is the time to ask them. Or if you want to share like, hey, I've been going through this, is this part of it? Now's a great time to ask that kind of question. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think one of the things that, the last several years I've offered this program, we focused on a lot more, dense spiritual topics. This one will be a little bit lighter, a lot more fun, and there'll be a lot of ease with it. Okay. Okay. Now let's see. Let me come back into the chat. Raven says she can't get enough kale. Yeah, totally. A lot of people are talking about how their diets have changed. Lil Trodare says, I've had to get in better shape to better maintain the downloads and light codes. Yeah, it's interesting because back in, I think about 2015, my guides told me, okay, we need you to start running and exercising. And I was already in, decent shape, kind of coasting on an athletic high school career. But, and so I had, my figure was fine, but they were like, it's not about your figure or your shape. It's about maintaining a body that can hold higher level frequencies. I was like, oh, snap. All right. They were like, we need you to discharge and facilitate the cellular turnover rate at a higher level so that we can get you more of the light that we're trying to give you for what's coming. It's like, okay. So that's interesting. Sun, Moon, and Rising asks a great question. How can one navigate this with multiple children to care for? That is such a brilliant question. Sun, Moon, and Rising, first of all, I just want to thank you for bringing new beings into form in this particular energy and timeline. It is not an easy time to have kids in this particular moment. I also want to say that many of the children who are incarnating at this particular moment in time are coming in with some advanced consciousness that's going to help you facilitate your understanding, awareness, and movement into these higher consciousness timelines if you're willing to listen to some of the things that they have to say about what they're sensitive to and what they need and their interactions with their friends. If you're willing to, when they tell you like, oh, so-and-so hurt my feelings, and they tell you like why, you'll find that their consciousness is at a level that is just like, whoa, you're doing something different. And so I will say that some of this is really honoring their own, that they have a soul journey that they're going on. And a big piece of your journey is going to be not navigated, but paced with their journey. It's going to be perfectly syncopated along with where they're at and what they need. I've often said it that children are our biggest mirrors, and you kind of get 3 opportunities for huge mirrors in this lifetime. One of my old coaches used to say, either you choose the path of mirror through marriage and partnership, you choose the path of mirror through a business, or you choose the path of mirror through children. But one of those three is going to be your biggest mirror when it comes to the truth of who you are and where it is you need to grow in order to be able to extend light through life. And so either your marriage or partnership is going to show you, yeah, here's where you got to grow. Your children will do that, or your business will. And either way, one of the three, you're not going to be able to be a person who plays small. And so, I wouldn't over focus on whether or not sun, moon, rising, you're doing this quote unquote right. I would really just focus on staying in sync with what are the developmental needs of the children, because those are actually going to guide you in your spiritual development and in your spiritual process. You don't actually have to reach outside of you. It's going to come to you through those kids. And so again, I just really want to applaud and salute you and all the parents on this live chat this Sunday. Whether you've got adult children, you're still a parent. Them kids still need you. I tell my mom and dad all the time, look, I still need y'all. You are not off the hook. I may be well and truly grown, out of your house since I was 16, moved back in for a year, once during the pandemic and once in 2015, but I still need ya. You're not off the hook. So, and they know it. They know it. So, hats off to everyone who is bringing kids through this period of time. Okay. The craft of living shares, I learned to honor the rhythm of body and flow. I had to stop equating my productivity with my worth. Here, here. Good job. Celine says she realizes they need fruit, nuts, veggies, and more stuff. Yeah, good. Very good. Mariah says, number 7, I've been struggling so much. Time management has been interfering with me all the time. When I'm running late, I always find there is a greater reason I had no prior idea of. Yeah. I had all these symptoms for the last 12 years, and Star Traveler, that's right on target, because much of this really began in 2012. And the 2012 energies peaked in 2012, but they really came online around 2010, 2011. 2011 is where my clairaudience came online, and then it amplified in 2018. My spiritual gifting with reading astrology came online in 2015. So yeah, there's been a lot of this stuff unfolding since between 2010 and 2012. Elizabeth says, before I understood that people are repelled by my energy because it illuminates my darkness, I judged myself, and thought I was the problem. I'm glad I understand the dynamics so I can love everyone more. Yeah, very good. I think I think your name may be written in Hebrew, and I think it's Natasha. Don't quote me because I don't read Hebrew, so I have no idea. But says symptom 7, I have been always considered slow to very slow. On top of that, now it feels I have all the time in the world to do what I need to do. Like time has expanded. Yes, time. For those of you who are in this particular place, you'll find time really does feel like it is expanding. Or maybe it's Nara. GMS says Nara. Okay, thank you, GMS. Amber asks, when you said about some of us being able to shift space, hold space, please, can you talk more on this? Sure thing. I'm going to speak. I was going to speak to it inside of Q&A with Kay. That first session, the Ascension abilities, more in depth, but shifting space and holding space, you're going to see that, and it may not be online yet for you, but it might be. You're going to see that when you walk into a room, that there is an extraordinary amount of you're going to start to notice, like read the energy of the room, and you walk in with a particular frequency and the frequency of things shift. Like you're just going to notice, like, so for example, yesterday I went to get a coffee while I was working, and I walked into the coffee shop. Um, Actually, a better example is earlier in the week, I went in to get a coffee at a different coffee shop. And in the coffee shop, everything was quiet when I walked in. Like people were working, everyone was kind of like minding their own business. But right after I walked in, and right next to me too, because I was like trying to get some work done. I just like needed to not work in my house. Like I needed to be out. Is a decent sized coffee shop, but of course, the people who felt the need to pull up next to me were couples. They were love couples, and they were chatty. One couple was just getting to know each other. It looks like they were like on a first date, and another couple were, it seemed like they were traveling together, because they were like taking all the pictures of everything on their coffee, and like, they spoke, in a different language, and they dressed like they were definitely not from where I live. It's like, okay, clearly you're from a far more fashionable location on the planet than where I live. And so they, it was sweet that they just sat down and they enjoyed their coffee and they took all the pictures, and then they just sat in silence, like they had known each other for years. And so, the thing that I was noticing was that the longer I was there, the more the people at the different tables started talking to one another. And like there was one group of people at a group table who were completely silent, and they just decided they were going to connect. Like in my world, and I definitely get a lot of emails like this too, after twins who have been in separation come and talk to me. They're like, oh my God, my twin reached out. We're in communication now. Or, oh my gosh, I reached out to my twin and it's working this time. We're in communication. Like I just notice, like it's odd because I'm finding myself in this season of deep consecration where I need more time with myself and with God. But around me, whenever I go out, like their couples and like groups are just like magnet, like connection and communication is like it unfolds in my presence and in my space quite a bit. And so that's what I mean by shifting space. There's a particular frequency that you carry, a particular flavor or diminutive, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like derivative of love that you personally carry, Amber. I don't know what it is. It may be that, it may be ease. It may be ease and allowingness. It may be a frequency for something else. I know my frequency is specifically for communication, and specifically for like just people like netting together or knitting themselves together, and for clarity as well. And so you may, whatever your frequency is, you'll get to know it over time, but you'll see that once you're in space, there's an impartation of that to other people. In the Christian worlds or religious worlds, they call it an anointing, and you're anointed with a particular gift. And my particular gift is for like clarity and communication and like there's a pulling of people in togetherness in my space. It's funny because even my dad noticed it recently. He and my mom too, they both have said it to me in the last 12 months. They said to me, Kay, you're the reason we're in the place we're in this family. If it wasn't, like for you and the way you've done certain things or stood for certain things or shown up in certain ways, like my mom called me in my Christmas card this year. She was like, you're the glue. I was like, really though? All right. And she knows I can be very withdrawn and very antisocial, but in our family unit, she's like, you're the glue in this family unit. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But yeah, that's kind of the frequency or the impartation that I provide when I show up on the scene. And you each have your own impartation, your own frequency, or your own anointing with the activation of love that you received as a twin, if you're a twin flame, or light, if you consider yourself a light worker. Each of you has your own, and you'll know what it is, because the circumstances around you will shift while you're just being yourself. You don't have to try. It's just you being you. And the things will shift in a very particular way. And so we'll talk about more of that in Q&A with Kay. The Sapphic Collective asks, ingesting animals and or any truly cannot be tolerated in any moral, logical, and psychosomatic way. That doesn't sound like a question, so I'm going to leave that for you. Kylie says people eat food on YouTube and become millionaires. Yes, Kylie. It's amazing how that happens. Star Traveler says, I'm feeling stuck. If you have a question, let me know, Star Traveler. Monikita says, how do you think people look at us who are ascending? Monikita, can you clarify, like, how do you think other people who are ascending look at you? Or are you asking me, how do I think people who are not ascending look at people who are? I'm going to say, I think all the humans who are on planet Earth are ascending at this time. There's just no way to survive the frequency changes that Earth has if you're not. So as much as it is unfolding in a way that is difficult to understand in its totality from a human perspective, right, it's still happening. And so if you could clarify the rest of that question, I will answer it. Elizabeth Link, I am stuck too, have been for 2 years. I'm just trying to overcome my fears of putting myself out there and being a leader and an influencer. I create this unknowing of what my gift, I think you were going to say, is. Elizabeth, I will say Q&A with Kay will definitely help you with this, because there's going to be a lot of conversations we'll have that will include my activation for confidence and clarity just by being in the room with me. But you will start to get opportunities to just tip your toes in the water through the challenges and assignments that we're going to have week to week in Q&A with Kay. So I really hope you decide to join, because you're going to start to find that conversation is when we're going to have more richly and more in depth with others who are in the same place. It can take time, but there's a balance between putting yourself in a position that necessitates you just figure it out. That's what I did. And actually still being able to feed yourself in the process. So we'll talk through some of this in the program, but yeah, it can feel a little bit daunting, but one of the ways I personally moved through it, Elizabeth, is I got community. I joined a mastermind at the very beginning of my journey, trying to share my gifts with the world back in 2006. I joined a group of people who were all trying to learn how to do this together, that was guided by a mentor. I actually joined 3 different groups, guided by a mentor who had already done it, been there, done that. And so through the impartation of my mentor's guidance and coaching, and through being in league with a cohort that was all doing the same thing, I was able to step by step get myself out there. Because that is really funny. I spent some time with my ex-fiance the other day because he happened to be in town, and he was asking me, what have you been up to? And I was like, I couldn't really say much because I can be very antisocial. Like, I do not like to kind of go out a whole lot, not at this time. I'm just not guided for it. And so I named a couple of things, and then I concluded by saying, I think I've really started to understand how much of a deep introvert I am. And he just stopped what he was doing, looked at me, and rolled his eyes. He was like, really? Okay, now you get it. And like, because he's known me, like knows me, like he really knows me deeply. And he's known this about me before I figured it out. And so he thought it was hilarious that I was like, okay, fine. Maybe I'm not just understanding it. Maybe I'm embracing it. He was like, yeah, I think that might be the more appropriate word here. So it's just sweet. But yeah, even though I'm very quiet and very shy, in certain settings, and I socially, like, I don't excel often. I fake extrovert extremely well. I have many people fooled when they meet me in person. But the truth about me is that the only way I could have done it is if I had had structured community. Because on my own and left to my own devices, I am very content solo. And so without structured community and structured guidance, it would have been impossible. I would still have been stuck. The conversation we are having, God would have had to have given somebody else the messages because I wouldn't have been able to do it. So my strong recommendation, Elizabeth, and anyone who finds themselves in that circumstance, even if it's not this community, find a community with people who are working on the same things. Okay. Daria says, I felt urgently called to the class when I was reading about it yesterday. I let it sit on my heart for a few hours and the urgency remained, so I had to sign up. Oh, Daria, welcome. I am so grateful that you joined. It's going to be great to have you. And I think it's Natara. Symptom 2, I have always disliked criticism, gossiping, and only negative talking about situations and staff. Now it's unbearable. But if I am to answer, I am calm. And I think that word is kind of in need, king of in need to offer clarity. Okay. Got it. Got it. Yes. Mariah asks, is there an astrology component to Q&A with Kay? There is not. It is purely coaching. It is purely conversation, community, coaching. There'll be assignments for those of you who need to get yourself out there. We're going to be talking about how to do that and providing some challenges for you guys as well. EL asks, Kay, can you touch on how this energy is impacting a Leo rising? Saturn and Pluto going through 7th house has been hell. Yeah. And I've talked about this for all of you. You really want to look to the place in your chart at this particular moment where Pluto is leaving Capricorn and meeting with Aquarius. And I can guide you in that in a private session. And I would honestly, EL, really need to see the rest of your chart to understand why you would describe it as hell. I would need to have a conversation with you to really support you in the best way and look at your chart. Okay. Elizabeth says, a bit funny, just observe it and only discuss in depth and share elaborately with those that seek my opinion or assistance. Yes. Swatinanda, how do the symptoms we discussed affect the twin relationship? Does this create separation and individual growth? So I'm not sure what point you joined, Swatinanda, but I think the first hour of the conversation, I really talked about the breakdown of relationship dynamics and structures as we know them. And there's a in process, dynamic, as we speak, currently unfolding rewrite to what the relationship model and template here on earth is going to be built on. Our influence for it is for it to be built on love as opposed to expediency, property, and conference of rights or inheritances or access to wealth. And right now, humanity, and we are part of it, we're in these little human vessels, are in a moment in time where there's a lot of, because this breakdown is unfolding in real time, because it's happening that we're no longer basing love and or basing marriage and partnership on these external entrapment features, and humanity is now asking, well, could we base it on something different? If so, what? And it doesn't have an answer yet. We are advocating as counterparts, as twins, that it gets based on love, but because there's no answer, there's also no real movement yet. We're seeing humanity kind of in this mode of like figuring it out in real time right before our eyes when it comes to coming together and union. Okay. And we're just on the journey with the other humans. It does not create separation unless that is something that's needed for your leadership and light work or your lessons in your connection. Some of you are finding that your counterparts are really caught up in the world systems around this stuff and needing to figure out for themselves new definition for themselves around what it means to be a man or a woman or a spouse or a partner. And they're just along in the system, the cosmic soup. They're on the ride, they're on the train with the rest of us. And so as they move through that and come to their own answers, you will find their development and your development as counterparts continues to not only mirror, but move toward one another. And you can definitely cultivate that growth and learning spiritually as well through the Mercury retrograde. Kat says, my son totally was born with that. I called him my little old man the second I saw him. Yeah. Chris Gemini says, I've been needing to ground and exercise for a long time. Elvin asks, many divine feminines can't imagine being with someone else in the beginning of the separation. Why can a divine feminine fall in love with someone else later on? What kind of ascension is that? You know, Elvin, that correlates with the purification process that I've spoken at length about in the video about that. That purification process is specifically a period of time of consecration where you're discharging and breaking all of the old systems you had around love and what it is and what it isn't, its power and what it can do. And that period of time is really a period when the divine comes and ride. Speaking of riding shotgun in a car, that's when the divine comes to ride shotgun with you and really helps you understand the true nature of love and connection in a way that prevents you from sharing it outwardly while you expand it inwardly in your consciousness. So I have seen that that's a kind of thing that can indeed happen later, but what you're going through in the purification process is a major detox. When you're in the middle of detoxing, let's consider maybe a juice cleanse. That's not the time to eat cake. You'll actually make yourself sick. And that is indeed why we are set aside. Okay. Very good. White blue edits. That's actually one of the things that we're going to talk about inside of the Ascension Abilities class on Friday the 1st this week, is because there's a lot of that. Lots of clear visions, lots of clarity, tons of energy. There's almost like a blissiness hitting Earth in waves and pockets. It's funny. I was talking about that with my counterpart recently, that we both felt this blissiness. So, yeah. Looking for other questions. Okay, Star Traveler, my heart has been hurting, which I thought was relating to too much stress, but is this the ascension affecting my heart too? Yes. So as all of this light energy is hitting Earth at this time, any place where you're harboring pain from your past is going to get activated so it can get excavated so that you can deal with it. Absolutely. Once you've actually healed the thing, you're going to find it gets a lot easier. when these light waves hit Earth, to take them in as bliss as opposed to heart pain. It's just indication that there's healing there, star traveler, that needs to happen. Release and letting go, forgiveness of you and them, and a deepened understanding and awareness of why things have happened the way they have. Okay. Let me see if there are any other questions here. What if there is now a high level soulmate in my life instead of the twin who keeps hidden and silent in the background? Liza, trust your path. It's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. Solen Phoenix Grace says, was consecrated exact channeled language as Solen on 520, followed by a wicked cool period of redemption. Yeah, this spring was an incredible period of time of upgrades going on through the spring and the early summer. Okay. Sue, I don't have a question to that. I've been having very, very vivid, crazy dreams that leave me disoriented when I wake up. Does that have anything to do with as espionage? I think that's autocorrect. I think what you mean is ascension. Sometimes people's dreams can have a lot of like language communicated them for their ascension process. Absolutely. Mara Lawler says, thank you, K Moon. So much of my soul is wanting clarity. You're welcome. Amber says, when you said that one of the symptoms is being unable to hold space. Yeah, it's just like your friends want to come complain to you about their life. You're just like, no, I don't have bandwidth or capacity to do that anymore. You want to process your life in my space? It's a no. It's just, I don't know that it needs much more explanation than that, Amber Rose. You just find yourself unable to be the processing container for people's processes as they're figuring out their life, walking through it, moving through it, trying to understand what's happening. They have questions about it. You may have previously been the person who was like the person that could psychotherapize all your friends or coach them, or that you were the person they could rely upon to understand everything going on for them. You may find, Amber Rose, now you're not that person anymore. You just can't do it. It's uninteresting. It's draining. It is frustrating. You have greater interest in your own processes, where you're headed, what you're working on, your own downloads, growing yourself, growing what it is you want to contribute in bigger ways or other ways. Some people can still do this, and I have found that these are indeed the people who are healers. This is what it is they do. This is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be shifting people from one state to another state. They still have a lot of bandwidth for that, but I'm finding people that aren't ordained for that. Like, that's just not the mantle they wear in this lifetime for their work. I find that those people are less and less and less able to sit with people who are just, quote unquote, going through something, but not growing through it. And so that's what I'm saying there. Hopefully that provided Amber Rose some greater explanation, but the energy just presents as like, yeah, it's a no. Like you see their phone numbers pop up in your phone and you're like, ugh. It just feels heavy. You just don't want to talk, and you really don't want to listen either. You'll find that lack of bandwidth for, yeah, I'll just listen while you just talk about your pain and you're not actually growing. You'll find that unless you're in a healer capacity, or your ability, like you are being urgently urged forward to where you're supposed to be at this time, and to not continue to spend your resource of your energy in that way. That is, for some, maybe an ascension symptom you might be experiencing, but not everyone. Okay. So you're gonna have to really pay attention to where you're at in your process. Amber says, anyone else really tired at the moment, needing more sleep? Absolutely. In the second half of the year, a lot of people will find that. Absolutely. Okay, yes. And if you want to enroll in the program, you can definitely do that. I think some people may have asked for that. So I'll just repin that comment for you guys or repost that. So if you want to join Q&A with Kay, where we get into this stuff much more deeply, we will. Babette asked, to be clear, Q&A with Kay is the class. Yes, it starts on September 1st. It goes through September 29th. It is a 5-week program. Okay. All right. So there's that. All right. Here I go. I think we are going to wrap up here. It has been a lot of fun to be with you guys, and you guys are going to find this an extraordinarily empowering season for those of you who are like, okay, I mentioned in the Lightworker energy update, yes, lots of choices need to get made at this period of time. You're going to find yourself making those particular choices at this moment. And those particular choices are going to really impact the acceleration of your, not only your ascension, but your light work and how you're doing your work. So if in fact you are called to join Q&A with Kay, I strongly recommend you do it today, as the price for the program will go up tomorrow to the normal price for a 5-session program with me. It'll go from being $144 to being $177, and there's a chance to save 20% or $33 USD if you join now. But otherwise, you can certainly join later on this week if you'd like to do that. We start this Friday with the conversation about ascension abilities. We talked about symptoms, but we're going to talk about some of the kind of supernatural abilities that I'm seeing more and more people start to have, and how to use those as we move forward. Okay. A lot of fun being with you guys today. Hopefully you got something that validated your experience and journey in our conversation. If you know someone who needs this information, please send it on over to them. And if you're guided to join Q&A with Kay for this year, I would love to have you there. Take great care, everyone. And if you're joining, I will